Greetings from the Orator Team at Feynman AI. Okay, think back for a second. Do you remember the last time you had to speak in front of a group? Maybe it was, I don't know, a big presentation.
Or a critical business meeting. Even a wedding toast, maybe.
Right. And did you feel that that knot of nervousness tightening up? Maybe you felt like your mind just went totally blank, or you stumbled over your words?
Yeah, and then you walk away thinking, oh, I could have done so much better if it wasn't for that thing, that uncontrollable nuisance, mental or physical.
Exactly. If any of that sounds familiar, well, you're definitely not alone. You're actually in really good company.
Mm.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something that, frankly, touches almost everyone at some point: speech anxiety. We're pulling our insights from a really great resource. It's a two-part blog series. One's called Understanding Speech Anxiety, and the other is Turning Speech Anxiety into a Superpower.
Yeah, and our mission here really is to guide you through understanding, the common symptoms, the reasons behind stage fright, but more importantly, we want to take that next step,
Which is?
which is equipping you with the knowledge, the actual strategies, to turn that anxiety from something holding you back into a force that genuinely makes your public speaking better. So get ready for a shortcut, kind of, to being well-informed, packed with some surprising facts, maybe, and practical techniques, things that can help you move past those, negative experiences and feel confident next time.
Okay, let's get into it then. We all know that feeling, that sort of gut-wrenching nervousness, but what if, what if that racing heart, that feeling in your stomach, wasn't actually weakness? What if it's like a natural response, maybe even healthy?
That's one of the surprising takeaways, right? Speech anxiety is incredibly common.
Yeah.
And often it's just a sign that you care. You care about the outcome. You're aware of the social situation you're in.
And what's really interesting, I found, is that loads of successful speakers, people who do this all the time, they still feel some anxiety.
Absolutely. The key isn't getting rid of it completely. It's about managing it, harnessing it, actually.
Harnessing it.
Well, believe it or not, a little bit of that adrenaline can actually sharpen your focus. It gives you energy, makes you seem more alert, more passionate even. So it's less about eliminating the feeling, more about, channeling it constructively.
Okay, channeling it. But first, we need to know what we're dealing with. So identifying the symptoms is step one, right?
Exactly. You need to recognize it to manage it.
Yeah.
So physically, what might you notice? Maybe a rapid heartbeat, maybe sweaty palms, actual sweating.
Oh, the dry mouth thing? That's classic.
Dry mouth, definitely. Some people feel nauseous, like butterflies or worse, or actual muscle tension.
Yeah.
Tight shoulders, clenched jaw.
Right. And then there's the stuff going on in your head.
Yeah, the cognitive symptoms. That could be anything from, like, racing thoughts. You just can't shut your brain up.
Or that negative voice.
And negative self-talk, yeah. It's going to mess up. They're all judging me. That intense fear of judgment or failure. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate, or you get that awful mental blankness.
Oh, the blank mind. Terrifying.
It really is. And then behaviorally, you might see people avoiding eye contact or fidgeting, pacing.
Or speaking super fast or way too quiet.
Exactly. Or even stuttering, stammering. Sometimes people just want to withdraw, just get out of there. The intensity varies, of course. For some, it can totally block them, and if you don't manage it, it can unfortunately get worse over time. Recognizing your own pattern is key.
Okay, so we can see the symptoms, but why? Why do we feel this? You mentioned something about wild animals. Is there some deep, like, primal root to this?
It's fascinating, actually. Public speaking and, say, encountering a threat in the wild, they can trigger the same ancient fight-or-flight response.
Seriously?
Yeah. Think about it evolutionarily. Being judged, potentially rejected by the group, that used to have massive survival consequences. Exclusion could be fatal.
Wow, okay.
So public speaking taps into that old wiring. Your brain perceives this social evaluation as a threat, and boom, it releases cortisol, adrenaline.
Leading to the racing heart, the sweating.
Precisely. It's a protective mechanism. But when it's overactive in a speaking situation, it makes you hypersensitive. You might misread neutral faces as negative, and it kind of limits your thinking flexibility right when you need to be sharp.
So my ancient brain thinks the board meeting is a saber-toothed tiger. Great.
Sort of, yeah. Beyond that, though, a huge factor is just that fear of judgment. Simple as that. We worry about mistakes, looking silly, not measuring up.
And what makes that fear worse? Like, are there specific things?
Definitely. Our sources point to a few things. Audience size is one more people feels like more potential critics.
Makes sense.
The importance of the speech, the stakes involved. Higher stakes usually mean more anxiety. Also, how familiar you are with the audience. Strangers can feel more intimidating than peers sometimes.
Okay,
And, cultural or social dynamics play a part. Speaking in front of authority figures, for example, can really ramp up the pressure.
that makes sense. What about just not being ready? Does that play into it?
Oh, hugely. Lack of preparation is a major contributor. If you don't feel you know your stuff well enough, you're naturally going to fear getting lost, not knowing what to say, or freezing up without being able to recover smoothly. Those noticeable gaps are what we dread.
Yeah, getting stuck. And what if you've had a bad experience before, like you bombed a presentation once?
Yeah, past negative experiences definitely stick with you. Forgetting lines, getting harsh feedback that can create lasting anxiety that flares up next time. The good news, though, is that this can be reduced. You can build positive experiences to counteract it and regain confidence.
That's encouraging. What else? Any other causes?
Well, perfectionism is one. Setting those impossibly high standards for yourself, that just dials up the stress over tiny mistakes that nobody else would even notice.
DTS charged sometimes.
And novelty, uncertainty. Our brains are wired for survival, so anything unfamiliar in a new venue, a podium, a microphone, taking questions unexpectedly can trigger anxiety just because it's different.
Okay. So unfamiliarity is a trigger too.
And finally, though it's less common, there can be physiological factors. Some people might just have a more sensitive nervous system, maybe even genetic predispositions. If the anxiety feels really severe, debilitating, maybe there's a family history, talking to a doctor isn't a bad idea.
Right. Okay, so we've got the symptoms, we've dug into the roots, the evolutionary stuff, fear of judgment, lack of prep, past experiences. It's complex, but it sounds like it's a pretty normal human thing.
Absolutely normal.
But here's the exciting part, right? How do we actually turn this common hurdle into, like you said, an advantage? How do we make this work for us?
This is where we really start to flip the script. Mindset is huge here. One of the biggest things holding us back is this misconception about how the audience sees us. You might feel like your hands are shaking uncontrollably or your voice is trembling.
And you assume everyone notices and is judging you harshly.
Exactly. But here's the kicker from the research. You almost certainly do not look as nervous as you feel inside. Studies consistently show this gap. A speaker might rate their nerves an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Well, the audience sees it as maybe,
Maybe a 2 or 3. Often, they don't notice much at all.
wow, really?
Really. And get this. Even if some signs are visible, like maybe you look a bit flushed or energized, audiences often interpret that as excitement or passion for the topic.
So they might actually see it positively.
Often, yes. So worrying excessively about looking nervous is usually counterproductive. And remember, the audience generally isn't there hoping you'll fail. They want to learn something, be engaged, be inspired. They're typically supportive and way more forgiving than you think. They care more about the value you're bringing.
That's a massive mental shift. Okay, if the audience isn't out to get me, and they probably don't even notice my shaking knees, how should that change my approach?
It frees you up to shift your focus, move it away from yourself, your worries, your performance, your appearance, and put it squarely on the audience. What do they need?
So thinking about serving them rather than performing for them.
Precisely. Think of it as giving them a gift. Your insights, your story, your information, rather than being under this harsh spotlight.
Yeah.
When you genuinely focus on connecting and providing value, that self-consciousness tends to just fade away.
Yeah.
And the anxiety often fades with it.
Okay, focus outwards, not inwards. Got it. What else on the mental side? You mentioned anxiety and excitement earlier.
Right, the anxiety-excitement connection. Physiologically, they feel almost identical, don't they? Increased heart rate, adrenaline, heightened awareness.
Yeah, they feel very similar.
Your body doesn't really distinguish between them. It's your mind that labels the feeling.
Yeah.
So you can consciously reframe it. Instead of thinking, oh no, I'm so anxious, try telling yourself, wow, I'm really excited to share this message.
Like tricking your brain.
Kind of. It's a simple cognitive switch, but it can genuinely channel that energy more positively. And let's face it, an audience responds well to a speaker who seems excited and passionate about their topic. They feed off that energy.
Okay, these mental reframes sound powerful, but what about the physical side? Can we do things with our body to help calm down?
Absolutely. Your
Yeah.
body is deeply connected to your mental state. So let's talk practical physical techniques. Breathing is fundamental.
Just simple deep breaths.
Specifically, deep, controlled diaphragmatic breathing. Breathing in slowly through your nose, letting your belly expand, and then exhaling slowly through your mouth. Doing this for even a few minutes before you speak actively lowers your heart rate, tells your nervous system to calm down, reduces that muscle tension. It really works.
Okay, diaphragmatic breathing. What else? Exercise.
Yep, light physical exercise. That adrenaline we talked about, it needs an outlet.
Mm.
Going for a brisk walk, doing a few jumping jacks, some stretching, it helps burn off that excess nervous energy.
Releases endorphins too, right?
Exactly. Mood boosting, calming effect. Just, don't run a marathon right before you go on stage. Keep it light.
Good tip. And what about the voice itself? Mine definitely shakes sometimes when I'm nervous.
Vocal warm-ups. Super important. Think of singers or actors, they always warm up. Your voice is your instrument for speaking. Warming it up helps prevent that shaky quality, improves clarity, projection.
What kind of warm-ups?
Simple things work great. Humming, doing lip trills like blowing raspberries, tongue twisters, maybe gently singing up and down a scale. Just getting the vocal cords relaxed and ready. It's one less thing to worry about.
Okay, breathing, light exercise, vocal warm-ups. Got it. What about preparation? We mentioned lack of prep as a cause, so good prep must be a solution.
Oh, it's the solution, arguably. If there's just one piece of advice to take away, honestly, it's practice, practice, practice.
But just reading it over isn't enough, right?
Definitely not. You need to practice out loud, multiple times. Use the gestures, the expressions you plan to use. Practice in front of a mirror. Record yourself on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awkward, but so helpful. Rehearse for a friend or family member.
Why is practicing out loud so crucial?
Because the goal isn't just memorization, it's internalization. You want the material, the flow, the key point to be so familiar that you can deliver it naturally, almost automatically, even if you're nervous. You need to understand the logic so well, you could rebuild it from anywhere if you got lost.
Rebuild it from anywhere. I like that.
And here's a really critical tip. Get your opening down cold. Practice the first minute or two until you could do it in your sleep.
Why the opening specifically?
Because anxiety tends to peak right before you start and in those first 30 seconds to a minute. If you nail the opening, if it feels smooth and confident, it gives you this huge psychological boost. Your anxiety levels often just plummet after a strong start.
Yeah.
So if you've practiced 10 times, practice that opening an 11th time. Seriously.
Yeah, the start, boost confidence. Makes sense. What about where you practice? Does that matter?
It can, yeah. Remember the novelty trigger. To combat that, try simulating the actual speech environment as much as possible. If you'll use a mic, practice with one. If you'll be standing, practice standing. If you can, try to rehearse in the actual room or a similar space.
Reduces the surprise factor.
Exactly. It makes the real thing feel less daunting, more familiar. Been here, done this.
Okay. And you also mentioned visualization, like mental rehearsal.
Yes. This is such a powerful technique used by top athletes, musicians, performers. It's not instead of physical practice, but it complements it beautifully.
How does it work?
You close your eyes, get comfortable, and vividly imagine yourself giving a great speech. See yourself speaking clearly, confidently. Picture the audience responding positively. Walk through the entire thing in your mind, feeling the success.
Just imagine success.
Mostly, yes. But you can also visualize handling challenges calmly. Like imagine the projector fails and you smoothly transition to your backup. Or you handle a tough question well. This trains adaptive responses.
So you're mentally preparing for things going wrong too.
A little bit, yeah. Coping scenes. The amazing thing is, your brain and body process vivid imagination almost like it's real. So when you actually step on that stage, part of you feels like, oh yeah, we've done this before. It reduces the perceived threat.
Okay, that's really cool. So practice, simulate the environment, visualize success. Now it's the day of the speech. Game day, as you said. Any last-minute routines?
Definitely. A good game day routine can make a big difference. First, try to connect with a few audience members beforehand.
Like just chat with people as they arrive.
Yeah, arrive a bit early, say hello, maybe ask a simple question. It humanizes the audience. They stop being this scary, anonymous blob and become individuals. It reduces that us versus them feeling.
Okay, connect first. What else?
Do a quick final mental run-through of your key points. Just refreshing the main structure. Don't try to cram or over-rehearse at this point. Trust your preparation.
And maybe some positive self-talk.
Absolutely. Remind yourself, I'm prepared, I know my stuff, I have something valuable to share. Boost that mindset right before you go on.
And physically.
A last little round of those physical readiness techniques. A few deep breaths, maybe shake out your arms and legs lightly to release tension, a quick vocal warm-up hum, just getting your mind and body centered and ready.
Okay, solid game day plan. But what if things still go wrong? You make a mistake, your mind goes blank despite everything.
It happens. The key is, don't panic. First, just breathe. Take a deliberate pause. most minor mistakes, the audience won't even notice. Seriously, they don't have your script.
Good point.
If you do lose your place, have that backup ready. Glance at your notes, tell a brief, relevant anecdote to buy yourself a second, or even just acknowledge it lightly. Lost my train of thought there for a second. Right, moving on. People are usually very forgiving.
What about tech fails? Projector dies, mic cuts out.
Always have a plan B, C, and D for tech. Printed notes, a USB stick, maybe even an interactive bit you could do without slides. Stay calm, communicate the issue. How you handle glitches with grace actually makes a really positive impression.
Okay. And if the physical symptoms pop up mid-speech? Voice shaking?
Again, don't panic. You can pause, take a breath. You could even acknowledge it briefly if it feels right. Excuse me, just a bit excited here. Often, just acknowledging it helps it subside. The audience will likely be sympathetic.
So the main thing is just keep going.
Pretty much. Stay focused on your core message. Why are you there? What do you want them to take away? Don't let a small stumble derail everything. Regain your composure, find your place, and continue with confidence. Recovery is a skill too.
This is all incredibly practical. So summing it up, it really sounds like by understanding the roots, reframing our mindset, preparing physically and mentally, and having recovery strategies, we can turn this anxiety thing around.
Absolutely. It's not about eliminating nerves entirely, because that energy can be useful. It's about transforming it. Harnessing it, focusing on your message, connecting with your audience. It becomes less of a hindrance and potentially even an asset.
A superpower, as the blog title suggests.
Perhaps. So here's a final thought to mull over. Think about your next speaking opportunity, that next big moment. What surprising power might your own nervous energy hold, now that you have some ideas on how to channel it deliberately?
That's a great question to leave people with. And if you want to dive even deeper, the Orator Team at Feynman AI has put together a really comprehensive guide. It's a 38-page PDF covering the science and the practical steps for improving public speaking.
It pulls together a lot of this and more.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. You can find a link in the show notes for this deep dive, or just head over to order.feynman.ai guide. That's order.feynman.ai guide to grab your free copy and continue your journey.